There are two major American transit systems that are jacking up their fares. Big time. For anyone who wants to take public transit to World Cup games in their areas. It's embarrassing and shameful, and I will explain why. So first, let's go into the background of how we got here. The two major transit systems that have gotten flack for jacking up transit prices to and from their matches are New Jersey Transit in the New York metropolitan area and the MBTA in the Boston area. The MBTA is charging $80 for round-trip tickets to and from World Cup matches at the Boston area stadium venue. In contrast, it's $20 for a round trip when NFL games are played in said stadium. And as for New Jersey Transit, they are charging a whopping $150 for round-trip tickets to and from World Cup matches at the New York City area stadium venue in eastern New Jersey. Bus fares are set to $80. In contrast, the New Jersey Transit tickets heading to New York Giants or New York Jets American football games is $12.90. And what's the rationale? With the New Jersey Transit ticket hikes, the rationale is that it should be fans going to and from games who pay for the cost of extra service, not New Jersey taxpayers. And with the MBTA, the rationale is that it's to cover the cost of transit improvements to the stadium. Not that I really care what the rationale is, because the more I dig into this price gouging from the MBTA and New Jersey Transit, the more embarrassing and shameful this whole thing really looks. Like, consider this. It was announced 8 years ago, in June 2018, that the United States would host the World Cup. The host venues for the World Cup were announced in June of 2022, which means that transit agencies in host metro areas have had 4 years to figure out a way to not make transit a logistical nightmare. This isn't some disaster that has just snuck up on the New York or Boston metro areas. We've had 4 years to plan for this. And it's not like this planning involves figuring out how to cover billions in expenses. Like, the MBTA says that the cost of transit improvements ahead of the World Cup is about $70 million, an amount that comes to just over 0.1% of the most recent adopted budget in Massachusetts. And New Jersey Transit says that the cost of extra transit for the World Cup is about $48 million, an amount of about 0.08% of New Jersey's $58 billion budget. Basically, from my point of view, these two state governments had 4 years to cover what amounts to a fraction of a percent in the totality of a state budget. And instead of doing proper planning, we now have public transit agencies charging people outrageous fares to go to World Cup matches. Basically, it's the transit riders who are paying for poor planning on the parts of New Jersey and Massachusetts. But even if these states genuinely didn't want to pass on costs to taxpayers, there are other ways these agencies could have found ways for fares to stay at reasonable levels. For example, SEPTA, the transit agency in the Philadelphia area, has been able to get the help of Airbnb to enable free rides on the Broad Street line after all 6 of Philadelphia's World Cup matches. Now, I have a lot of feelings about Airbnb as a company, but the point is that Philadelphia shows that there are ways to pay for the expenses of World Cup transit even if the government doesn't want to pay for it. Granted, it's bizarre to me that allegedly progressive states, such as New Jersey and Massachusetts, wouldn't see it as a worthwhile taxpayer expense to invest in affordable World Cup public transit. Yes, it would be a taxpayer expense, but it's an expense that helps us ensure that fewer people are on the road during the World Cup, that traffic is lighter for those who do drive, and that everyone's air is cleaner. But I digress. This price gouging resulting from poor planning is the sort of stuff that you'd expect from metro areas that are inexperienced at holding such major events. But the thing is that the New York and Boston metro areas are not inexperienced, even though they certainly come across as inexperienced. In fact, the one other time the United States hosted the World Cup, in 1994, the Boston and New York metro areas had World Cup matches then too. You'd think that transit planners and politicians could look at how they handled transit logistics for the 1994 World Cup and focus on building upon what they did well back then, as well as learn from ways they didn't do as well as hoped. It's not like the MBTA or New Jersey Transit have zero playbook to work off of. They have a playbook that they should use and build upon based on this previous World Cup hosting experience. But just because someone should do something doesn't mean they'll actually do it. Now, some might argue, well, but if you're already flying from another country to head to the World Cup and get tickets for the World Cup, you're already paying an outrageous amount. And sure, some are already paying an outrageous amount. And the $80 or $150 fare will be far from the greatest expense you'll encounter if you attend a World Cup match in New Jersey or Massachusetts. But, given how corrupt and morally bankrupt the organizer of this tournament is, these states should at least set the low bar of being better than the tournament organizers, rather than having a race with the tournament organizer to the bottom of moral rot. There is one word to describe this whole thing, and it's in the title. It's embarrassing. And if you feel the same, I encourage you to write to New Jersey Transit's customer feedback form, as well as to the MBTA Board of Directors email. I'll try and provide information on how to do both in the video description below. I'm not sure if such actions will prevent the price gouge World Cup tickets from going through in the end, but if nothing else, taking these actions can show that these agencies can't get away with doing stuff like this without it being a huge political mess, at the very least. I do ask, though, that no matter how passionate you get, that you keep your comments civil. If you have any thoughts on this topic, please leave them in the comment section below. Make sure to also leave a like and subscribe to my channel for more content on imagining better mass transit in the United States. Thank you, and have a good day.